usually is meant to defend people's rights, is actually apologizing and supporting Sharia law and Islamism. So there's a lot of reasons for why this is happening. The government refuses to take action on this case. We have found a member of the House of Lords that has submitted a private member's bill. The government has already said that it will not accept this bill. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on putting pressure to stop Sharia courts from taking place. One of the other problems is that there is a disgusting, vile far right that is xenophobic, that is anti-Muslim, that is anti-immigrant, and in my opinion, no different from Islamism. Islamism is also a far right movement. They are one and the same. And because of the far right's hijacking of this issue, a lot of good people are silent. And the only thing we can say is if you are silent, you leave the space open to the far right. This battle has to be done by progressives, by the left, by humanists, by secularists. That is who must carry this banner against Sharia. And our campaign there has created a space that didn't exist before. But you see this problem in many other countries where the far right does have the upper hand. And it's very, very dangerous for society. I leave the discussion on Sharia courts there, but I'm sure there'll be other questions on it. I think the coining of the word post-Islamism is an attempt to separate the realities of Islamism from the new Islamism in a way. Islam is so is a movement that is so hated, that is so despised, that is so vilified, in a sense, that its proponents have to create a new image for it if it's going to be able to be accepted, and supported, in a sense. And I think this coining of this phrase is a political ploy, in the same way that Islamophobia is a political ploy. So,
created by the far left?
Created by people who want to defend. I wouldn't call them far left, postmodernist. Yeah, because I think I'm far left myself. So I mean, you hear about them saying how the Islamists in Egypt are going to be different from Iran. They've said they're going to be moderate, and so in a way to shove that down people's throat with some sweetener, they've given it a new name, and I think it's actually, this is Islamism. And while Islamism has political power, like any religion, this is what we're going to see. When they talk about moderate as well, usually it's because they're starting by attacking women's rights. And usually all movements are very happy to trade with women's rights when they can. On political Islam in the future, I think political Islam is under huge amounts of attack. In a sense, even if you look at the rise of the Tea Party in America, it is a reaction to a move away from traditional values. And I think Islamism's attempts at controlling society is because it needs control, because it is moving away, particularly given that the young are so much part and parcel. It's such a large section of the populations in the Middle East and elsewhere, and the whole connection of this youth with the population worldwide via the social media and the internet and Twitter. So I think political Islam is on its demise, but that doesn't mean that we should all go home and be really happy. A lot of it does depend on how this battle in the region and also in our own societies here in the West play out. Are we going to give them the upper hand, and are we going to stay silent while they carry out abomination after another, or are we going to do that which people before us have done, intervene and fight them to the end? And I think a lot of it will depend on what happens with that. How to end the hijacking? Again, I think intervention. Secularists in the region need to know that there are people who support them and defend them. If you have the postmodernist lefts clapping and hailing Islamism, what hope and support are secularists getting in that region? So How did we manage to get rid of racial apartheid in South Africa? Person-to-person solidarity, groups and committees set up to stop Western support of the apartheid regime and to defend people on the ground who are fighting apartheid. That's what we've got to do. That's how it's always been done.
Can we do this? United Nations?
No, us. Listen, my scenario keeps government intervention is economic sanctions that hurt the population. It's military support and bombing, which hurts the population. And if you look at the intervention of the Western governments, it has always been to the benefit of Islamism. Iraq is more Islamic after their intervention. In Afghanistan, they're talking about bringing the Taliban back. Most of the women in prison in Afghanistan are there for moral crimes. And even after they've finished their sentence, they're not even allowed to leave because Sharia law won't allow them to leave the prison without a male guardian accompanying them. I think it's interesting that the postmodernist left are friends with Islamism because they think that it is a force of anti-imperialism, but they don't remember that Islamism was actually something that US foreign policy brought to center stage during the Cold War. And they don't have a problem with all of Islamism, they just have a problem with the sections that come out of its sphere of influence. So if the section that comes to the World Trade Center, the section that comes to a London Underground. But this movement has been wreaking havoc in the region for decades, and they're not concerned with that. And very often they have very close links with Islamism. So it's putting pressure on governments. It's showing person-to-person solidarity and exerting enough pressure so that things change. I think real revolution, where it's people's intervention is always good. It's always good.
For example, in media, it was more international.
Well, I'm talking about, I know that things in Eastern Europe have been called the Velvet Revolution or whatever. I don't call those revolutions because they've been orchestrated from above. But any revolution where people are intervening to change their destiny and are challenging political power, I think is a positive thing. What happens after that has as much to do with the people who are revolting as it does with all the rest of us as well.
Thank you, Maryam.
Well, my name is Johan Gustafsson, and as a labor activist and trade unionist, I'm very worried about the calls for autonomy amongst the cultural, ethnical, traditional and religious groups in Sweden. Why? Because I consider it's very important that workers look at themselves as workers, and that's the main. That's why we can fit together against the suppresses capitalism and so on. And I'm also worried about my former friends and comrades in the socialist movement. They tells me always that I am demonized Iran when I take part in solidarity campaigns.
I think that people who come to a new society want to belong. I find now that immigrant communities are being blamed for policies of governments in segregating and ghettoizing them to a large extent. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, I think that the Swedish government, the British government, they must be held accountable for the ghettoization and segregation of our communities and our society into different, the Muslim community, this other religious community.